Hello, my name is Danica Ornelas, reporting to you from Bell Gardens High School.
Hello, I'm Valeria Montes Juarez.
Hello, I'm Carla Gonzalez.
I'm Alexa Romero.
And I'm Dalila Castillo.
We look back on the Columbine High School massacre.
It took place in a peaceful suburban town called Littleton, Colorado on April 20th, 1999. 2 teenagers went on a shooting spree, killing 13 innocent people, one being a teacher. The perpetrators were Dylan Klebold, 17, and Eric Harris, 18. The shooting spree began at approximately 11:19 a.m. The perpetrators had entered the high school with semi-automatic rifles, pistols, and several explosives and began to shoot students outside. Then moving inside, where they systematically killed most of their victims in the library and the cafeteria. The original plan was for the 2 propane canteens to explode in the cafeteria at 11:17 a.m. to force survivors to flee outside into the gunmen's line of fire. But when the bombs failed to go off, they took matters into their own hands.
There was a speculation that the perpetrators committed the killings because they were part of a group of social outcasts. Their act of violence was a retaliation for being victims of bullying. Violent video games and harsh-sounding music were blamed, however none of these theories were ever proven true. The pair made homemade videos prior to the attack making references to what they were going to do and apologizing to their parents for it. Harris was known as a dominant, manipulative, angry, quick-tempered, and most of all a dangerous young man. He had a personality disorder that caused him to lack empathy for the victim's suffering. On the contrary, Klebold was suicidal, hurting, and had low self-esteem. Harris was Klebold's source of validation, therefore making him the weak one in the dyad. A junior named Bria Pasquale recalled that you could hear them laughing as they ran down the hallway shooting people. Towards the end of the nightmare, the perpetrators shot themselves at 12:08 p.m. on the same day. In the aftermath of the Columbine massacre, close to 3,000 families of the Columbine victims settled lawsuits with the parents of the suspects and the gun suppliers. It's a tragedy that shocked the world, and we will never forget the legacy of these 13 victims.
10-second trivia. What was the largest music festival in history that spread the message of peace and unity? A. Coachella. B. Woodstock Festival. C. Newport Folk Festival. D. Monterey Pop Festival.
And the correct answer is Woodstock. Woodstock was the most famous music festival of the 1960s, which lasted 3 days. Held in August 15 of 1969 in the midst of a period of considerable unrest and protest, the Woodstock Festival was an opportunity for individuals to escape into music and voice the anti-war messages present in folk and rock music. Woodstock became one of the most influential and famous music festivals in history, as it produced a powerful outcome which legitimized younger people's perspective and featured legendary rock icons such as Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, The Who, and many others. The origin and history of rock can be characterized by its constant evolution. This is because the genre has been redefined throughout the decades since it first emerged in the 1950s. Known for its edgy and rebellious sound, rock music took the world by storm and it began to dominate the music scene by the 1960s. Rock and roll was cultivated from a combination of American jazz, country, gospel, and blues music. It was thought to be a bad influence on young people because of its fast, loud, and upbeat sound, as well as its daring lyrics mixed with electric guitars and strong rhythms. Chuck Berry was a pioneer of rock and roll music who combined country and R&B to create a unique sound. He is considered the father of rock and roll because of his major contribution to the evolution of rock. Early rock music was performed largely for a black audience by African American musicians who developed rock and roll. These artists heavily influenced Elvis Presley, who rose to fame when he was discovered by Sam Phillips of Sun Records in the 1950s. Many know Elvis Presley as the king of rock and roll. The music scene was dominated by the high energy and driving rhythms of Chuck Berry, Little Richard, Bo Diddley, Fats Domino, Jerry Lee Lewis, and Elvis Presley. Record companies ignored rock at first, and music by black artists was hardly featured on white-owned radio stations. When large record labels finally acknowledged rock and roll, they looked for white people who could copy the original black artists. In the 1960s, the Beatles became a huge sensation in America when they arrived in 1964. They initiated a golden age of British rock and roll, where several British bands, such as the Rolling Stones and The Who, adopted American rock and made it their own. Bob Dylan created his new sound by combining folk and rock with poetic and social messages. With wailing guitars and crashing drums, Jimi Hendrix developed heavy metal. Many people consider him to be one of the most influential electric guitarists. The 60s drug scene influenced psychedelic rock, also known as acid rock. During this time, outdoor concerts like the Woodstock Festival of 1969 became very popular. People of all ages listened to rock by the 1970s, in which new styles grew to reach a very diverse audience. This decade brought about progressive rock, which is a combination of classical music with jazz and traditional rock. The impact of rock can be seen by the huge role that it played in the social fabric of its time. It was a part of the civil rights movement in the 50s, it usually represented the anti-establishment culture in the 60s, and 70s and 80s rock often reflected a more cheerful era of change and diversity. Today, rock and roll is an evolving art form that continues to influence music.
And for today's 10 out of 10 is a puppy rock star. Our TikTok video gone viral by the user Nicholas Lee uploaded a phenomenal video. A puppy skating down a flight of stairs. Not only doing that, but doing tricks such as flips on the board. And to the dog named Rowdy, here's a joke for you. What's a dog sound's favorite musical instrument? A trombone. And the shout out goes to Bell Gardens High School, home of the Lancers. Thank you for watching CNN 10.